I think it's fair to say that it seems like every time you turn on your local news station or your national news station that there's some mention of legalizing marijuana. Do you agree? The legalization of marijuana has been a subject of spirited debate for over 5 decades now, from both sides of the aisle, no matter what your position is. Regardless of that and where you stand on this issue, which is a huge, very important issue in our time today, most folks are not aware of the conflict that exists of the numerous legal issues that surround this subject, mostly pertaining to there's a big issue between the state and the federal laws. States are legalizing where marijuana is still illegal on a federal level, which poses a whole bunch of problems, not only for individuals but for businesses and all parties involved. This conflict that exists out there directly supports why now is not the right time to legalize marijuana. It wouldn't be right to discuss an issue of this magnitude and size without getting into a little bit of the reasons why you might consider legalizing marijuana and being a supporter of that. As stated by Rosenthal and Cubby, why marijuana should be legal, medical usage is the most compelling argument according to the research that they've conducted. It helps alleviate pain and symptoms in many illnesses such as HIV/AIDS, asthma, autoimmune diseases, cancer, chronic pain, glaucoma, epilepsy, and many others out there. As nice as that is, marijuana does not cure any of these illnesses. It simply helps alleviate the pain and masks the symptoms, helping the person be a little bit more comfortable as they deal with what they have. Rosenthal and Cubby also argue that the legalization of marijuana can help boost local economies. You can do this many different ways according to their research. First and foremost, it helps reduce the cost of having to prosecute, arrest, and jail the dealers that are out there distributing the marijuana. The estimates show, according to the research, that it could save as much as $450,000 per dealer if this became legal across the United States. The other compelling argument is it's going to raise fees and tax revenue, which will certainly benefit the local, state, and economies that choose to go down this path of the legalization of marijuana. These are really compelling arguments if you're on that side of the argument. But I just ask you, does the good outweigh the bad? Let's continue on and look at the other side of the aisle. One of the biggest challenges surrounding the legalization of marijuana really kind of spins around driving. Are we going to have folks out there very similar to how we look at being impaired with alcohol and drunk driving? Well, we can have a similar circumstance with folks driving impaired after they are high from the results of marijuana. It really poses a problem because our police officers today have no way, after they pull a driver over, for testing them to see if they're impaired after the use of marijuana. THC, is the drug which gives the user the high and is influenced by many factors such as your metabolism, which makes it really difficult to measure. So just one challenge after another is what we seem to be faced with trying to figure out if someone is impaired versus not impaired. Currently, scientists and lawmakers have not been able to figure out a legal limit to test like with alcohol sobriety. Blood tests can be used, but they're very expensive and they require medical staff, which if you get pulled over by a police officer, it's very unlikely that there'll be a medical staff available to administer a blood test. Your blood levels change rapidly, which again makes it a very difficult test to administer and also get an accurate result. Legalization also poses major issues for employers. Many liability insurers require drug-free workplace policies. It's a direct conflict if it becomes legal in a state. Workers' compensation insurance coverage also poses many issues. Employees that drive for a company. Think about this. Whether you're driving a truck, whether you're driving a car, whether you drive a forklift in a warehouse, whether you drive, or in other words, fly an airplane, all of these will be impacted with the legalization of marijuana. Driving while impaired presents a huge liability issue for the employer of this employee, which is going to result in enormous lawsuits, which will impact all of us. Could put that company out of business. It could certainly raise up the cost of everything that they're providing if they are suffering one lawsuit after another. The impact of legalization on businesses continues. The federal employees, for example, you cannot use marijuana or use any kind of illegal drug in order to be a federal employee. Fox National News reports that businesses that are currently selling marijuana are receiving letters from their financial institutions forcing the closure of their bank accounts. Banks are federally insured, and right now marijuana is illegal on the federal level. This forces businesses to operate on a cash basis, which runs the risk of robbery and other things that are just not good for the business. My own industry, in my civilian occupation, payment processing, we prohibit opening up a merchant account for someone to accept credit cards or checks who currently sells marijuana in their store. With some states already legalizing marijuana while federal law prohibits, we have in fact opened a Pandora's box. Will we ever be able to contain it?